Cleopatra, the story of the Queen of Egypt. The morning sun cast long golden shadows across the marble floors of the great palace in Alexandria. Queen Cleopatra VII stood on her private balcony, watching the Mediterranean Sea stretch endlessly toward the horizon. The gentle waves lapped against the harbor walls below, creating a soothing rhythm that had comforted her since childhood. At 28 years old, Cleopatra had ruled Egypt for nearly a decade. Her dark eyes, lined with coal in the ancient tradition, reflected both wisdom and weariness. The silk of her white gown fluttered in the sea breeze, and the golden uraeus serpent on her crown caught the early light. She was beautiful, yes, but it was her sharp mind and fierce determination that had kept her on the throne of the most powerful kingdom in the ancient world. The queen's morning peace was interrupted by the soft footsteps of her most trusted advisor, Apollodoros. He had been with her since she was a young princess, helping her navigate the dangerous waters of royal politics. His weathered face showed concern as he approached. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, bowing his head. "The Roman ships have been spotted on the horizon. Caesar's messenger will arrive by midday." Cleopatra nodded slowly, her fingers gripping the stone balustrade. For months, she had been waiting for this moment. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, was coming to Alexandria. The fate of Egypt hung in the balance. The problem was simple, yet overwhelming. Cleopatra's younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, had challenged her right to rule. With the support of the royal council and the Egyptian army, he had forced her to flee Alexandria. Now she lived in exile, plotting her return while her brother sat on the throne that was rightfully hers. Caesar's arrival presented both opportunity and danger. If she could win his support, she might reclaim her kingdom. But if she failed to impress the Roman general, Egypt could become nothing more than another Roman province, and she could lose everything she held dear. "Apollodoros," she said, turning from the balcony, "prepare the boat. We sail for Alexandria tonight." Her advisor's eyes widened. "My queen, it's too dangerous. Your brother's soldiers guard every entrance to the palace. They have orders to arrest you on sight." Cleopatra smiled, a spark of the old fire returning to her eyes. "Then we must ensure they don't see me." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, a small fishing boat made its way quietly through the harbor of Alexandria. The great lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the world, stood tall against the darkening sky, its beacon guiding ships safely to shore. Hidden beneath a thick carpet in the boat's hull, Cleopatra waited. The rough fabric scratched against her skin, and the smell of fish filled her nostrils, but she remained perfectly still. This was her only chance to meet Caesar before her brother could poison his mind against her. Apollodoros had arranged everything carefully. They would enter the palace through the servants' quarters, where an old friend still worked in the kitchens. From there they would make their way to Caesar's chambers. The boat bumped gently against the dock. Cleopatra heard the muffled voices of the guards as they questioned Apollodoros about his cargo. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to breathe slowly and steadily. "Just carpets for the Roman general," Apollodoros explained. "A gift from a merchant in the East." After what felt like an eternity, she felt herself being lifted and carried. The carpet swayed gently as Apollodoros made his way through the familiar corridors of her childhood home. She could smell the incense from the temples, hear the distant sound of musicians practicing in the great hall. Finally, they stopped. She heard a door open, and then she was being unrolled from the carpet like a precious gift. Julius Caesar stood before her, his intelligent eyes taking in every detail of the scene. He was older than she had expected, with silver threading through his dark hair, but his presence filled the room with quiet authority. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice carrying both amusement and respect, "this is certainly the most memorable introduction I have ever received." Cleopatra rose gracefully to her feet, smoothing her gown and adjusting her crown. Despite the indignity of her arrival, she carried herself with the bearing of a true queen. "Great Caesar," she replied, her voice steady and clear. Desperate times call for creative solutions. What followed was not the tense negotiation Cleopatra had expected. Instead, she found herself in conversation with a man who appreciated intelligence and wit as much as political power. They spoke of philosophy and poetry, of the great library of Alexandria and the future of the Mediterranean world. Caesar listened carefully as she explained her vision for Egypt not as a conquered province, but as a proud ally of Rome, spoke of the prosperity that could come from cooperation between their two great civilizations. "Your brother believes that Egypt should bow to Rome," Caesar observed. "My brother is young and frightened," Cleopatra replied. "He sees only Rome's strength and Egypt's vulnerability. I see two great nations that could achieve far more together than either could alone." As the night wore on, Caesar found himself impressed not just by Cleopatra's beauty, but by her wisdom and her genuine love for her people. Here was a ruler who understood that true strength came not from forcing others to submit, but from inspiring them to greatness. The twist came at dawn, when a commotion in the courtyard announced the arrival of Ptolemy XIII and his advisors. The young pharaoh had learned of his sister's presence in the palace, and had come to demand her arrest. Caesar watched from his window as the siblings faced each other in the great courtyard. Ptolemy, barely 18, looked small and uncertain despite his crown and royal guards. Cleopatra stood tall and unafraid, her chin raised defiantly. Sister Ptolemy called out, his voice cracking slightly. You have defied the will of the council and the gods themselves. Surrender now, and I will show mercy. Cleopatra walked forward until she stood just beyond the reach of his guards. Little brother, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the courtyard, I am not here to surrender. I am here to remind you of something you have forgotten. She gestured to the gathered crowd, servants, merchants, craftsmen who had stopped their work to witness this confrontation. Look at their faces, she continued. These are our people, Ptolemy, not Rome's, not the council's ours, and they are watching to see what kind of rulers we will be. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across the young pharaoh's face. He had been so focused on keeping power that he had forgotten why power mattered. In the first place, Caesar, watching from above, made his decision. He would support the ruler who truly understood what it meant to serve their people. The ending came peacefully, as the best endings often do. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra was restored to her throne, but not as the sole ruler her advisors I had hoped. Instead, she chose to rule jointly with her brother, teaching him the lessons of leadership she had learned through years of struggle. In the months that followed, Egypt flourished. The kingdom remained independent while maintaining strong ties with Rome. The great library was expanded, trade routes were secured, and the people prospered under rulers who worked together for the common good. Cleopatra often returned to her private balcony at dawn, watching the sun rise over the Mediterranean. But now she was no longer alone with her worries. She had found her way home, not just to her throne, but to her purpose as a leader who served something greater than herself. The waves continued their eternal dance against the harbor walls, but their rhythm no longer spoke of loneliness. Instead, they whispered of continuity, of the endless flow of time and the enduring strength of those who choose to build rather than destroy. And in the great palace of Alexandria, the Queen of Egypt smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering others, but from learning to rule oneself with wisdom and compassion.